From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Building a better cow with a focus on sustainability.
We're on the road today in South Dakota at Jorgensen Land and Cattle to showcase some of the top genetics in the country.
We'll take you to the latest stop on the Sustainable Ranchers Tour as we celebrate a crop that helps feed millions around the world.
It's been over almost 100 years since we opened a rice facility.
See how a new facility could hold the key to growing more and better varieties of rice as China continues to buy more U.S. ag products.
I believe the Chinese are trying to support their own farm income.
What may be behind the latest buying spree? An update right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Put Pioneer brand corn's exclusive genetics on your team. Win with higher yields and industry-leading traits. Pioneer brand corn, your best year starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Nearly a week after China asked its domestic traders to buy less foreign grains, it's back buying U.S. soybeans once again. Why? Market analysts and economists say this is negotiation 101. Just last week, China asked domestic traders to stop buying commodities like sorghum. The government cited ample supplies and weaker than expected demand weighing on prices. It said the situation is also threatening its long-standing policy to support local growers. The directive didn't last long. The next day, USDA reported a sale of 4.6 million bushels of sorghum to China. The country also making steady soybean purchases, including 4.85 million bushels for new crop soybeans confirmed on Tuesday.
Well, it's a little bit like what maybe Turkey is doing in the wheat market. It's a little bit like other countries are looking at where grain prices get low, so they try to limit the imports, and that's what China's doing. I'm being told from Chinese sources that this is a short-term phenomena. The Chinese told us back last May that they didn't want to push on the corn envelope in terms of imports, and now they're adding sorghum and barley. I'm also hearing that by end of October, early November, that the Chinese will be back and that I shouldn't adjust my import number of 23 million tons. I believe the Chinese are trying to support their own farm income, but they still need the corn. It's not been that good kind of growing season in China. Too wet to the north, too dry to the south, and 22 to 24 million tons from all sources still seems to be a good number in terms of imports into China.
John Sheave of Superior Feed Ingredients calling the move by China last week negotiation 101.
I don't put a lot of stock in it. If they need corn, they come and buy it. If they don't need corn, they're not going to buy it. And so, are you going to tell people that? It seems to me it's just going to be a head fake.
And while China's recent buying may be good news for exports, farmer sentiment is continuing to take a hit. The latest Ag Economy Barometer taking a nosedive in August. The survey of farmer sentiment from Purdue University and the CME Group fell 13 points from July, coming in at a reading of 100. Survey takers say weakening farm income prospects weighed on farmer sentiment.
When we asked producers about their biggest concerns for the upcoming year, they continue to point to high input costs as their top concern. But we are definitely seeing a rise in concerns among producers about the risk of low crop and livestock prices. This month, that nearly eclipsed the percentage of people who chose high input costs, with 30% of producers in the survey this month saying lower crop and livestock prices is one of their top concerns, compared to just 20% who chose that same choice last year this time.
Now, the August Farm Financial Performance Index fell 9 points below a month earlier and is now 14 points lower than a year ago. In fact, surveyors say this month's reading was the weakest response since July of 2020, when COVID-related lockdowns dominated the headlines. Western states have been dealing with a lot of extreme heat and dryness, but what does that mean for the water supply? Well, USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says many western states are coming off of 2 wet winter seasons, and he says for the most part, reservoirs remain in good shape, but he adds 2 states are experiencing water supply concerns. They are New Mexico and Washington.
Right on the corners of the West, we have some longer-term drought issues there, and statewide storage is well below average.
And while California remains in good shape when it comes to water storage, other major river basins in the West are still being impacted by years of drought.
developed, such as the Colorado River Basin and the Rio Grande system, which originates in Colorado, draining southward through New Mexico and eventually forms the international border between Texas and Mexico.
6 western states have above average water storage right now: Arizona, Idaho, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, along with California. Watch as wild winds whipped up this smoke-nado, a camera capturing it churning across a cornfield in Alabama. The Nitrate City Volunteer Fire Department says the unique vortex spawned while they were working on getting control of a grass fire that burned about an acre. With some extra help and a little rain, they were able to stamp out the smoke-nado and the fire. Meanwhile, heat continues to build in the west once again. Meteorologist Ben Engelbrecht has more.
Temperature outlook between the 8th and the 12th, looking at some cooler than average temperatures back around the East Coast. And as we've talked about before, in fact, going back to last week, you got a trough that's going to dig down here towards the East Coast and then more ridging out here to the west. That's going to suppress quite a bit of the rainfall chances, but also increase the opportunity for above normal temperatures in and across the Dakotas, but also into Montana. Now, right now, it is looking like, as you'll see in just a little bit, the jet stream is going to hold to this pattern into September and then eventually work to the east, which is going to bring about warmer than average conditions for 2/3 of the United States deeper into September. But at least wanted to just kind of put that on the radar. As we go forward through the month of September, the 8th through the 12th, still looking cooler than average, warmer than average into Florida, and then well above average, at least the chances of that, back up into the Dakotas. And it looks like corn harvest is a go in parts of west central Indiana. Jason's sending this one in, harvesting his March planted crop. The recent heat helping to speed up maturity. Looks like a pretty awesome crop going into the grain cart as well. I'll have more in your forecast coming up.
It's National Rice Month, and what better way than to celebrate with a grand opening of a new rice research facility. Leaders gathering in Little Rock to cut the ribbon on the Northeast Rice Research and Extension Center. The Arkansas Farm Bureau sharing video of it. The new center is part of the University of Arkansas. The facility is 20,000 plus square feet. Now, it's designed for conducting rice research and innovation. Experts say a recent trade agreement with Colombia produced some funds that were dedicated for research, and those funds were given to all the rice producing states based on the amount each state produced.
So Arkansas, producing almost half of the long grain rice in the United States, received about half of those funds. Our rice production has moved into the northeastern section of the state. In fact, the 4 counties that we're in here, we're in Poinsett County, but this 4-county, 5-county area here produces a large portion of the state's rice at this time.
It's been over almost 100 years since we opened a rice facility. Research facilities like this are not happening anywhere in the country other than right here, right now.
Officials say research at the Center on Sustainability and Water Conservation will be critical, along with help building up farmers' bottom lines for growing rice. Everything from rice selection to getting the right herbicide programs in place. In the South, it looks like sweet onion season is getting extended. The Packer reporting Glenville, Georgia-based Bland Farms will extend its Vidalia sweet onion season through early October. It's due to having a strong crop this year. The company typically supplies the onions until the end of August, but says thanks to exceptional weather and advanced storage technology, the season is going on a bit longer. Bland says the winter wasn't cold enough to damage the crop, and they enjoyed a perfect spring for growing. The season was so good, in fact, the company plans to delay shipment of Peruvian sweet onions to the U.S. for now because of this year's bumper Vidalia crop. September grains swing into the green to start the month. We'll talk about what's moving markets coming up next. And later, we're off to South Dakota to see how one ranch is using genetics and breeding to build a more sustainable herd in the country. Grains and cattle continued the momentum on Tuesday from Friday's trade. AgDay's Michelle Rook lets us know if we can keep that trend going in markets now.
Grains were all higher on Tuesday. Randy Martinson with Martinson Ag is back with analysis. And Randy, we were able in the grains to build on last week's higher weekly closes, which was nice to see. And How much of it was just a case of money flow?
Last week we finished the week with weekly higher closes, and I think that spilled over to help encourage the funds to continue to take some profits. I mean, we started the market a little, we struggled to start here on Tuesday, but the market was able to gain some ground. So I think a lot of it had to deal with the fact that, technically it's time to see this market see a little bit of recovery to bring, a little bit more enthusiasm, a little more entice more traders to come back into the marketplace. So I think it had a lot to do with money flow and the fact that the technicals are starting to show a small improvement.
Yeah, and when you have the stock market down and crude oil down as hard as they were, sometimes you do get some money flowing over into, say, the grains or the ag sector, don't you?
You do. And there, like you said, there's been enough news where, I think the market's been beat up enough where, we've hit the 4-year lows where now it looks like there might be a little bit of a buy in the commodities. And I think that helped encourage a little bit of buying to come back into place.
It seems like in the case of the row crops as well, we've had, some hotter, drier weather. So is the market trying to program in maybe a little bit lower yield and lower conditions?
I think that's part of it too. I mean, you look at the forecast that we're seeing. I mean, even last week we were talking about warmer, drier conditions. Now the 6 to 10, well, the 1 to 5 and the 6 to 10 all show drier conditions. It's a bet that, we're seeing some of the top end yields be taken off this crop. And I think that's adding a little bit of support to it. And the fact that we've got really strong demand yet. I mean, we're continuing to see exports almost on a daily basis.
Right. And export inspections were good on Tuesday. China's been in buying soybeans. Are they going to keep buying? Do you think we have more business in store?
The rumor is that they're continuing to buy and that there's some more announcements that'll be coming. And right now, if we're not the cheapest soybeans and corn in the world, we're real close to it. So I think that will help and continue to encourage some buying to come our direction.
Okay, let's hope we can keep the rallying grains going. Thanks so much, Randy Martinson with Martinson Ag. We'll have more Ag Day coming up.
Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
So in terms of that jet stream coming up for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, you see big ridging, but that is with cooler than average conditions for 2/3 of the United States. Reinforcing shot of some cooler air comes in Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So you see, again, that trough, that jet stream starting to dip down here to the south and work off to the east. You got the trough on the east coast and that ridge back out here to the west. Now, as I mentioned earlier, as we go deeper into September, the pattern is going to start to favor this trough moving out and a ridge building in for a good portion of the Midwest, but also the plains, which is going to increase the chances of some warmer than average conditions. Otherwise, another trough developing back out here towards the west coast. This is next Tuesday. So anticipate changes to this overall pattern by next Wednesday and Thursday. So again, this is a week ahead of where we are looking to be. As for the precipitation forecast over the next 24 hours, not much underneath that ridge for the next 24 hours. And then as we get into Thursday and Friday with that trough coming through, may get a little bit more activity back into Ohio, into the northeast, and especially down here to the south. But in terms of major systems, a pretty quiet pattern setting up across the United States with some of those bigger systems coming with the trough, but not a lot of moisture. So again, what we lose in moisture, we're going to gain in terms of cooler than average conditions over the next 7 days for parts of the United States, including the Midwest and up to the up into the Northeast. As for the severe thunderstorm risk, this is going to be around that transition zone between that ridge of high pressure out here to the west and then that trough digging off to the east. So Wednesday and Thursday, look for a few severe storms back in the Dakotas, but also into Minnesota as well as into Colorado. Brief heavy downpours, some strong winds, as well as some small hail. Again, that's a severe risk on Wednesday. By Thursday, the map really starts to clear up and clean out with comfortable conditions for most of the United States. We'll start off with Ohio. Sunny, high around 83 degrees, low of 53 degrees. South Carolina, mostly cloudy, high of 83, low of 70. And then Colorado, we just mentioned you. We'll mention it again. Evening thunderstorms, high around 84 degrees.
The outbreak of avian flu in dairy cattle continues. We have the latest updates next. And we'll travel to South Dakota and meet a ranch family focused on genetics to build a more sustainable future today in the country. Avian flu has arrived at the top dairy producing state in the country. California authorities reporting cows at 3 dairy farms in the state have now tested positive for H5N1. The infected herds are in California's Central Valley region. The state's ag department says the infected dairies are now under quarantine. That means the H5N1 outbreak in dairy cattle has now spread to 14 states. USDA reporting more than 190 herds have been infected since March, along with 12 dairy and poultry farm workers. However, California officials say no human HPAI cases have been confirmed in relation to these latest infections. While cheaper corn prices may not be good news for growers, experts are telling dairy producers to pack the bunkers right now with corn. Dan Bossi of Ag Resource Company is advising dairy producers to chop as much corn as possible, as well as consider managing feed costs strategically. He specifically recommends purchasing December corn call options and selling puts before the middle of this month. Now, he believes the dairy margin coverage amounts will hold, but at slightly lower levels, and that the feed prices should bottom in the next 30 days and trend higher into year-end on strong U.S. corn export demand. DairyHerd.com reporting that in essence, while corn prices are expected to increase, soy meal prices right now continue to decline, and that will require a vigilant approach to feed management for optimal cost efficiency. Now, good feed efficiency is an important genetic trait for cattle. We'll look at how a South Dakota ranch is focusing on genetics and breeding to build a more sustainable herd next in the country. The cattle industry has seen a huge evolution over the years due to genetics and breeding. Leading the charge for over a century has been one well-known South Dakota cattle operation. AgDay's Michelle Rook takes us there to see how their unique business model is shaping the industry for the future as we continue our Sustainable Ranchers Tour.
South Dakota is home to some of the best cattle genetics in the country, and here at Jorgensen Land and Cattle, their genetics touches nearly 94% of the U.S. cattle herd in some way, and it's part of their sustainability story. The Jorgensen's dominance in the Black Angus breed dates back 113 years as the family built one of the best-known registered herds in the country. That tradition lives on in their present cow herd.
Around 1,500 females, mostly registered, handful of commercial recips that we run all in northern Tripp County.
From that elite genetic pool have come some of the top sires in the U.S.
We estimate that our genetics influence about 250,000 calves a year directly from the Jorgensen program.
What makes Jorgensen's program even more unique, though, is their bull program, which includes leasing.
Our main business is we market Black Angus bulls, whether either through a lease or through private treaty. We market more bulls than anyone else in the United States. In 2024, it'll be over 6,000 that we market across the country. We offer delivery and pickup, and so we will take bulls to the customer, we will bring them back, and we care for them when they're not doing anything.
Which he says is about 6 months of the year, and so they retain ownership and feed their bulls in their feed lot.
All he's doing the other 6 months of the year is eating feed and breaking fences, right? And so us taking that risk on and that feeding responsibility and all that other stuff is a real benefit to a lot of our customers because they just don't want to deal with bulls.
Jorgensen's also run a genetics consulting business, Ideal Beef Genetics.
We are DNA testing all of our animals, and we are offering to sell genetic tests to our customers so that we can help them better match. Once we had their DNA of their cows or their heifers, we can actually match almost perfectly the bull matings for them.
And soon they'll use genetic tests to predict how animals will perform in the feed yard.
Or by way of certain traits, that we can actually help the growers capture better packer markets just by way of those genetic tests.
That helps the industry produce beef that aligns with what the consumer and packer wants.
We have to work closely with our ag producers to hit that mark. or find that that bull and sire that they use for their good genetics and sustainability.
Which adds value and sustainability for the Jorgensens and their customers for the future. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle, and that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day on Farm Country.